In this video, we're going to be going over the bend tool. So, realistically, the bend tool bends an object. It's not too mind-blowing, but it's actually on this deform tab, and you'll find bend right here. So, how the bend tool normally works is, normally I like to go to orthographic view. So I'm just going to hold Control Spacebar and go to my front view. Left-click the bend tool to activate it. Hover over the 3D viewport, and then right-click. So what's going to happen when I right-click is anywhere I right-click, it's going to try to the tool, the widget, is going to try to intelligently look at the scene and kind of adjust accordingly. So if we pay attention to what our bend tool looks like before we actually start bending things, we have this little plus sign right here with a rotate ring around it, and then, let's move this over here, a light blue or a light purple line that kind of goes up to a little cyan square. So what we can think of this as is this is our kind of start bend point, this is our end point, and then this is our actual rotation value. So as I move this around, you'll see this little cyan dot keeps trying to snap to the top of our shape. Even if I, put it over here, if I go too far this way, it'll try to change the direction. But if I go to the right of it, it kind of stops at the top. If I go to the bottom, stops at the top. Go all the way up here, it intelligently kind of snaps down to here because it thinks that's how we want the object to bend. So the other thing we can do is this little cyan plus, I can left click that and slide this around. And I can also grab this little guy and slide him around. So normally what you're going to want to do is move to the bottom of your object, move to the top of your object, and then you can just click on this and drag it and it will bend back and forth. So the other thing is once I do a successful bend, then I can take this little cyan plus, I can click it and I can move it, and now it's changing where we are bending from. So again, as I move this around, it's doing some kind of gnarly stuff, because realistically, let's undo that. What it's kind of seeing would be, just do our bend tool again, right click, would be if I was bending the shape kind of from this point, it would arc this way. So again, it's arcing in a really funny way. So normally what you want to do is just go to the base of the object, so reset the tool, and then bend one way or another. The other thing is you can have kind of a selection bend. So if I only want this part to bend, use my bend tool, right click, and I won't have to worry about the bottom portion accidentally bending. So again, you can kind of have as much fun as you want with that. But the other thing that you can do is inside of the UV tools, you can actually use the bend tool as well. So let's go ahead and close this guy out and go to this example right here. And this is just an example of an X. And again, we got some weird stuff going on in here. So let's actually just jump to Layout, Layouts, UV. So we don't have to worry about all that kind of weird stuff. So let's open up this little guy called Texture. And this is going to be the unwrap of this axe example. So over here we have the head of the axe. Again, probably don't want this overlapping, so we'll just adjust this a little bit. There we go. But the thing that we want to focus on is this right here. So you can see this kind of mirrors this curvature where it kind of bends and kind of snakes around. The same thing happens here. So if we technically wanted to straighten this out, we could use that same bend tool. So again, I have to go back to my tools, go to Deform, and hit Bend. Hotkey is Control E. So as soon as I click on that guy, I can right-click this menu, and now what I can do is I can bend this. So again, I can bend this and make it a little bit straight. So bend it there, spacebar, drop the tool, bend again, right-click, grab our top thing, move it down, and from here I can bend this straight. Now this whole thing, I can kind of rotate it. And again, we didn't really bend that perfect, but again, you can kind of come in here and tweak this as you need to kind of get the desired results. Only thing I want to kind of comment on is this bend tool. If I have the wrong axis selected potentially, depending on how you have your settings set up, sometimes this little guy would be kind of on the wrong axis. So if you see your rotate widget is kind of a horizontal or a vertical line and it's not really rotating correctly, just change your axis down here and chances are it'll solve your issue. But again, bend tool inside of Moto, really powerful. Let's just go over one little kind of Easter egg extra button real quick. This, if we look at it, it has the same number of kind of horizontal cuts and vertical cuts. We don't have any, like if I was to go in here and let's go ahead and turn this checker pattern off. We really don't need that. And I guess we don't need all the textures associated with this. So just to compare, right now we have kind of an even number. So if I double click an edge, it goes all the way up. If I double click an edge going this way, it goes all the way across. We don't have any n-gons or triangles like this, to where if I was to double click this, it would go to a point or a pole and then get confused and stop. It just has a nice clean grid of geometry. So what I can do is actually hit this rectangle button. So left click, default settings, hit OK. And what it did was these guys, it kind of modified as well. So we don't really want those to change. We like those how they are. So we'll double click these polygons and again do that same thing. Left click rectangle, hit OK. And you can see these all kind of snap to where all of these lines, instead of them being kind of gradually curvy, are perfectly straight. So again, another kind of powerful tool. Just figured I'd show that because the bend tool, us trying to bend something that the geometry is perfectly straight, we really don't need to bend it, but there's sometimes that bend tool comes in handy.